Around the world, millions of people are living in modern-day slavery. The organization Walk Free has published a global slavery index and estimates that more than 1 million people in the United States were trafficked in the year 2021 alone. Lisa Haba is an attorney who prosecutes traffickers and brings them to justice for their dehumanizing crimes. We recently sat down with Lisa and had a difficult conversation about the reality of this industry and how traffickers use abortion as a tool to control their victims. Viewer discretion for young children is advised. I'm here with Lisa Haba of the Haba Law Firm. Thank you so much for joining me, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
So your law firm focuses on helping women who have been sex trafficked. Talk to me a little bit about the work that you do.
Sure. Before I was a private attorney, I used to be a prosecutor. And when I was a prosecutor, we used to prosecute sex crimes, crimes against children, sexual violence, and human trafficking. And what I started seeing a pattern of was that there's plenty of businesses out there that look at exactly what's happening, see it, understand it, know it for what it is, and just turn a blind eye to it because they would rather make money off of the exploitation of a person instead of taking steps to stop it. And we see that so often that we felt that there just wasn't a way in which we could continue down one path and not try to tackle it from another angle. So in our law firm, we started a human trafficking division of our firm in which we bring lawsuits against businesses that knowingly traffic or profit from human trafficking.
And, you know, I think a lot of us often think about sex trafficking happening in places that aren't our hometown, aren't local to us. But just how prevalent is the trafficking industry in the United States?
Anywhere where drugs are being sold, anywhere where hotels exist, anywhere where a human being could be with a guy that she doesn't necessarily know, which is pretty much every single community in America, anywhere where somebody can look at another person and not see the value and dignity of that person, you're going to find human trafficking. The standard model, and of course there are so many variations of this, so I can't tell you there's like one size fits all by any means, but usually your classic sex trafficking scheme is going to involve a sex trafficker who, you know, the colloquial phrase everyone calls it is a pimp, but he's going to lure through, now it's a lot of online luring, they're going to lure people in. They're going to target children a lot of times, but any vulnerability can be exploited. Just think about vulnerabilities for a minute. The average age of recruitment for a person in sex trafficking at the beginning of their recruitment phase, and they go for a long game oftentimes, is 11 years old. Because they're vulnerable, they don't fully understand what this means, and they can form a relationship with them in a way that would be such that the child wouldn't recognize what's happening to them. So just to give you a quick example, we worked with a girl who was 11 years old. She started talking to somebody online who was actually an adult man, but he said he was a 13-year-old boy. And he just was a friend to her. And she didn't think there was nothing sexual being said, there was nothing inappropriate being said. It was just, when your mom's mad at you, I understand you. When your dad doesn't understand you, I understand you. I can't believe they would punish you for that. I can't believe you would feel that way. Your teacher doesn't get you. I can't believe you got detention. I get you. I'm your friend. I love you. And so by the time she was 13 years old, and puberty starts, and the hormones start, the vulnerability starts, this young child never saw it coming. But she was hopelessly in love with somebody that she thought was 2 years older than her. But at this point, there's such a great relationship there that when he said, I might be a little older than that, it was okay, right? And so she started a relationship with this older man. And he started wining and dining her and lavishing her with gifts. And it got to a point where she was in love with him. And the next thing you know, he says, I just need you to do a favor for me. We need money for us. And when I encountered her, she was many years older. She was addicted to heroin and was desperately in love with him, but also afraid of him.
I think that a lot of people, when they're confronted with situations so stark as that, they don't know what to do first. So what would your advice be to people who encounter something like this and want to help someone get out of a situation like this?
So I want to say, to answer that first, anybody who's living in human trafficking, who has lived experience of that way, they're living in a world that we can't comprehend. There's nothing that we can do unless you've lived through that yourself to understand the depravity that person has experienced. If you think about, we talk about a rape survivor who's gone through this, and then not to minimize that at all, that's absolutely horrific and can destroy a human being's life.
Of course.
But it's happened thousands of times to that person. They've lost all sense of self. They've lost all sense of the people around them. They've learned to obey instead of question. They've been beaten. They've been drug addicted. There has been so much depravity and just dehumanization of that human being, they don't even know themselves. And so when you encounter somebody like that, there is nothing that we are going to understand to help them. The key thing is you need to bring them to the people that know how to work with them, which is going to be law enforcement to get them out if they're ready, and it's going to be the service providers that are trained to help them heal. But I've seen many people that don't have that training try to help, and they either get, they could become part of a crime scheme, they could get in a situation where they think they're going to help and it's too much for them to handle. And when you take somebody in like that and bring in that trust and then say, I can't handle this, and put them back out, that does even more harm to that poor soul.
Lisa, talk to me a little bit about why you personally felt the call to establish this whole new branch at your firm to serve people who have been sex trafficked.
When I went to law school, I thought I wanted to be a police officer or go in the FBI. And I quickly realized as I was in law school that maybe that wasn't quite my path. I heard a speaker come to our law school, and she spoke about human trafficking. She was a survivor, and she talked about her journey. And I've always been a faithful person. My heart was completely turned that day, and I remember thinking, this is my path. And so everything I have done moving forward, I've always known I wanted to help women and children that have been through things like this. I've always felt that was my calling, but it was very clear to me that day that this was what path God wanted me on, and it's been His path ever since. I just am walking alongside.
Lisa, you talked about some of the ways that that traffickers lure women in. We've heard that abortion is often a tool that could be used by sex traffickers to keep, exploiting these women. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure. If you think about the model that these traffickers are using to exploit a human being, they're treating that woman like chattel. So the only thing that person, and I say women, I want to be clear, men and boys can be victims too.
Sure.
Just in the context of abortion, it's always going to be a female.
Right.
So when a female is being exploited and sold, and that's a person that can be purchased over and over and over again. If there's a deterrent to them being bought and sold, that's money being lost by the trafficker. And so what they will do is sometimes, and as horrifying as it sounds, there is a fetish out there for pregnant women. And there are people that want to buy that. So if that is something that can be used for money, they will use it for money. If the pregnancy is a deterrent to the clientele that they bring in, they're going to end the pregnancy. And so abortion is a tool, it's an instrument which enables sex traffickers, and they need it to continue their operation. If they didn't have access to abortion, they would obviously have a decrease in profits in certain circumstances. But the horrifying part about this is that there's kind of two sides to the abortion side. Many times if there's a free clinic, they will go in there, it'll be handled at the clinic. They look for places that will keep secrets and not ask questions and keep the confidentiality low because they don't want any eyes or any questions being asked.
Sure.
If that's not available, we often see back alley abortions happen too, where I've seen it where high-profile traffickers who are extremely well off and have a lot of money have a private doctor come in and perform an abortion. I've seen people lose their ability to ever have children because an abortion was done carelessly. And it's really destroyed a lot of the victims.
Yeah. The work that you do is obviously it's heavy, and the sex trafficking industry is so large and expansive. Could you offer any words of hope that there's stuff being done to stop this terrible, atrocity that's happening in all of our cities, in all of our towns in the United States? I mean, obviously the work you're doing is so important.
I appreciate that, thank you. Absolutely though, there is hope, because 25 years ago, all we ever talked about was there was prostitutes, and that's all they did. And every single victim was going to be a prostitute. And I think with the Me Too movement opening up a whole new way of looking at things, it's really changed the way that our society and our world looks at victimization. And it's been thrilling to watch the change. So now, before, when I first started at the prosecutor's office that I worked at, I was told that prostitutes needed to be put in jail for 10 days minimum, and we need to get them out of our county. And by the time I left, we were prosecuting their traffickers for human trafficking, and we were helping and giving these women services to help them get out and get the services they needed to heal. So I think there is a paradigm shift. And the other piece of it is that we're having this conversation now, right? And so all of your viewers are thinking, what can I do to make a difference? And I really appreciate that.
EWTN News Nightly recently featured the Knights of Peter Claver and their mission to end human trafficking one door at a time. You can find that interview on our YouTube page, and you can find resources and more information from the church on how to help people who have been trafficked at usccb.org. Check out their anti-trafficking program page.